Welcome back to another Spirit Island video. In this video, we'll be discussing my strategy guide for Stone's Unyielding Defiance. This is going to cover an overview of Stone. We'll talk about the spirit board, tracks, growth options, stuff like that. This is a video that I've actually already finished, but I've decided to remake it just because I have a new computer, new software, and there's a couple things that have changed since my original video last year. With that said, let's get started. Looking at the front side of the spirit board, we have Stone's Unyielding Defiance. You're going to set up two presents. One is going to be the lowest number mountain without Dahan, and then one adjacent land that has Blight or Sand. So you're going to choose. Looking at this board, we're going to start in our mountain that doesn't have Dahan, and then we're going to check, is there an adjacent land with Blight? In this case, no. Then we check, is there an adjacent land that sands? Yes, and therefore we'll start in F8. So we start in F4 and F8. It is a moderate complexity spirit. The summary of powers, it's high offense, low control, low fear, very high defense, and medium utility, and that utility is tied to the Badlands. Flipping the spirit board over, we have special rules. We have endurance of bedrock, and we have deep layers exposed to the surface. For endurance of bedrock, when blight is added to one of your lands, unless the blight outnumbers your presence, it does not cascade or destroy presence of yours or others. This is Stone's bread and butter. So how does that play out? If I have a presence here in F8, and F8 is ravaging here, they blight the land. If the blight does not outnumber my presence doesn't get destroyed, and there's no cascade. So as you can see, they blight, and my presence does not get destroyed. Now, if I have another spirit's presence in that land as well, as long as we meet the conditions of this special rule, that presence from our teammate does not get destroyed either. This allows Stone to kind of enter lands that aren't blighted that much. They're usually unblighted lands, and Stone can create like a safe haven in that land for other spirits and yourself, so you can kind of set up shop and use that as like an attacking base into the adjacent lands. Now let's say this land is blighting again, and now the blight is at 2, which outnumbers our presence. That'll cause our presence to be destroyed, and then now a cascade happens. So a lot of Stone's game is built around this special rule and making sure that the number of blight does not exceed your presence number in that land. Now, Stone has a second special rule, and it says the first time you uncover each of your +1 card play symbols on your presence spaces, gain a minor power. And those are marked with this little symbol here. So looking at the top track, Stone is going to have 3 +1 card play spaces, and those +1 card plays also come with a free minor power. Stone has 2 left innates, a defensive innate on the left and an offensive innate on the right. The defensive innate on the left, it says hold the island fast with a bulwark of will. You target yourself, it's fast. When blight is added to one of your lands, you may pay 2 energy per blight to take that blight from the box, or I guess bag, instead of the blight card. This rule is so important because this is how you can allow or let the invaders ravage in a land, blight the land, but if your presence is there, you can pay energy to not take the blight from the card. You can take it from the box, and that allows the players to avoid losing to the game's main loss condition, and that's that blight loss condition. And now, of course, you do need 2 earth to hit this innate. If you have 4 earth, the cost is reduced to only 1 energy instead of 2. And then if you have 6 earth and 1 plant, it says whenever events or blight cards directly destroys your presence, you may prevent any number of presence from being destroyed by paying 1 energy for each presence. Now it says directly. That's mainly referring to cards like the blighted cards, like this card, for instance. It says it says add a blight to a land adjacent to blight. Spirits may prevent this by ... destroying 1 presence. So instead, if Stone has this left innate 6 earth 1 plant, Stone could pay 1 energy to prevent a player from destroying their presence on a board, which would negate the effect of this blight card. And same thing, there's event cards too that Stone can pay energy to ignore the effects of. A lot of time, this tier of the innate it's win more. It really doesn't come up that often, but there are some games where it does come up, and it's critical that Stone is on your team and, well, can use this innate and just use this innate and prevent presence destruction. Important to point out that this innate also affects blight cards, or I guess blight adding cards like uniques, minors, majors, stuff like that. So as long as you have this innate, you can prevent any form of blight that's being added. Let's now look at the right innate here. And it says, let them break themselves against stone. It's a zero range, fast power. You're going to choose any land. So you have to choose the land in that fast phase, okay? A lot of players, they make this mistake of they don't actually mark the land in advance, and then an extra land might ravage from an event, and then they switch it around. You're supposed to mark the land in that fast phase. And if you have 3 earth, it says after invaders deal 1 or more damage to the target land, 2 damage. If you have the 5 earth, you also get to do half of the invader damage to the land, rounding down. So this part here, you would get half damage, rounded down, plus 2. And that's from this top part here. This is mainly how Stone is going to fight back. You're going to let invaders ravage into land. You're going to pay energy to prevent the blight from coming from the card. You're then going to punch back and do a ton of damage. Now, if you have the 7 earth and 2 sun, you get to use this entire part of the innate again. Now, if you choose to do both parts of the innate in the same land, that will basically wipe out the entire land regardless of the adversary. Now, you could instead repeat this into 2 different lands. So now you're doing small attacks back into 2 different lands. It's important to point out that cards like Badlands, the Badland token, only adds +1 damage once per action. So you would add it once for the entirety of this top part of the innate. You do not get +1 from the first threshold and then +1 for the second. You do not do that. It's just +1 total. Now, the repeat is a different action. So if you repeat, you'd get the Badlands trigger again because it's a second action. That makes sense. This innate can be very tricky because your math will change most of the time based on events and fear cards because you're doing damage based on invader damage. So if you have defend in the land, like let's say you have 10 damage, but you have defend 5, well, now the invaders are only doing 5 damage, but now you do half of that, so you're doing 2 damage plus 2, so you'd be doing 4 damage. So there's a lot of math that comes into play while playing the spirit, and that's another problem that a lot of players make, or a mistake a lot of players make is they end up forgetting what some of the extra defends, and then the math is off, and they do either more or less damage, and so forth. On the flip side, sometimes you have events that increase the damage of invaders, and that can be very beneficial. So if you're playing in Sweden, a town city, that's going to be doing 8 damage, which with these first 2 tiers, that means you'll be doing 6 damage back with just a town city, and that just decimates a land. Now, if I'm playing against just a regular adversary, a city town is just 5 damage, which means I'm only doing 4 damage back. So as you can see, for Sweden, I wipe out the land entirely, but against Prussia, I only can kill the city. And this is where you want that Badlands to be put in some lands such that you have the exact enough damage to fully wipe out lands. Because you'll have 4 damage plus 1, you'd kill the land. Looking at Stone's growth options, Stone is a 1/1/1, and just reviewing what that means that Stone is always placing presence regardless of the growth option. So the first option is a reclaim. It's going to give us 2 earth, and then we're going to place presence at 3 range, and it must go into mountains or lands with presence. The second growth option is an energy boost with further presence placement, and the third option gives us cards with little presence placement range. Now, this G2 rarely matters. you'll almost never play it just because you have so much energy from top track, and gaining power cards tends to be more favorable. There are some instances where you need this range, then you'll choose G2, but like I said, maybe like once every 20, 30 games it'll actually matter. Stone's G1 is very, very powerful, and that's because it's going to give us 2 Earth, which is going to hyper activate our innates here. And in the opening guide, I'll explain what I do with Stone, but I like to abuse this reclaim as much as I can. I mean, this is where a lot of Stone's power is built into here. The one restriction is the presence has to go with lands with presence or mountains. So once I enter that reclaim loop with Stone, I want to make sure that my presence are spread around the island such that I can reach all of the different land types. So I can reclaim, put a presence here, reclaim, put a presence here, or I can enter my mountain lands. So in those early turns, I want to make sure I can reach all 4 land types. And I'll cover this in the later videos as well, but I'm just mentioning it here. Finally, let's take a look at Stone's tracks here. Stone's tracks are different than a lot of other spirits. Stone's energy and card plays are tied to one track, while Stone has a bottom track that's filled with elements and a few other goodies. I'm a strong advocate for pure top track build. I don't believe Stone has a bottom track, and really all of this is just I'm not gonna say flavor text, but it really doesn't matter. Usually you're in full control right about here, because at this point you'll have 4 plays plus you'll have 6 energy. You can pretty much do whatever you would like because you've reached the 3/3, which is the concept of 3 energy and 3 plays allows you to play pretty much any major in the game, as well as you get plenty of drafts, right? You're getting multiple minors from uncovering these spaces because of your special rule, as well as you're getting minors or majors from your G3. So you have plenty of drafts to kind of build your hand. Now there's one thing to point out, and that's this bottom spot here, this 1 Earth, is important because if you play 4 Earth cards, let's actually do this. If you play 4 Earth cards, plus you reclaim, plus the bottom Earth, that gets you to 7. So that allows you to use your right innate and repeat it. So you won't be able to repeat that innate until 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, until turn, looks like turn 7 is when you'll finally be able to repeat this innate and use it into multiple lands. And most of the time the game is over by then, but there are some games where the repeat is very helpful. Let's talk about power level. So Stone is one of the best spirits in the game. I mean, the defensive, the offensive tools are so strong. You have plenty of drafts, which allows you to dig for those 0 cost cards that are support based. I'll talk about that in the next video. But overall, I would put Stone as, I would say, between 2 and 4 best spirit in the game. And that's out of a total of 68 current options. I think right now I have Stone as number 3, I believe. It might be a little higher. Let me double check. Yes, so that is correct. So Stone is currently ranked at number 3. It's very powerful. It's great into all of the current existing adversaries. It is one of the few spirits in the game that can play against 2 level 6 adversaries at the same time and win 100% of the time, which I mean that's nuts. Like very few spirits can actually do that, and Stone is one of them. If you like this video, like, subscribe for more content. I'll be going through the rest of my earlier guides, the Stone Guide, the River Guide, Starlight, and updating the software and adding a few extra goodies to it. So I'll see you guys in the next video.